The Chicago Bulls probably not competing in the Eastern Conference this season, but they may be holding all the cards as we approach the NBA's trade deadline. Every contender wants Alex Caruso. Zach LaVine wants out. I don't know if anyone wants him. And DeMar DeRozan could swing the title if he goes to the right team. Pat, the designer from Locked On Bulls, joins me now. And Pat, this is a team fresh off a 118-107 loss to the Toronto Raptors. Not a great one. Where do you think this team will actually make moves in the next week?
I think that a Zach LaVine trade will come. I think that's the one thing that probably will get done because there's just not a connection between him and the head coach that's here right now. Billy Donovan has his extension in place that nobody knows what it is, the length of it, how long he's. We assume he goes like when the last Reinsdorf is gone in the world, right? Like that's pretty much when Billy Donovan leaves. So I think right now there's not a relationship there that seems like it's a working relationship right now. And so they're going to move on, to me, from Zach LaVine in any case, because you can get back maybe okay veteran pieces and things that I guess get you out of a contract of a player that you don't want to get to the point where it becomes something disgruntled. I think DeMar DeRozan is an interesting one. The last we heard on DeMar is that the Bulls are far apart on years and a dollar amount right now. There's only two things that make a contract there, Peter. It's years and dollar amounts. So if you're far apart on those, haven't heard that they're gotten any closer since that report came out earlier this year. So I would assume that DeMar's probably out the door as well. The price that they hold on Caruso is very high, though. They're talking about 2 first-round picks for him. I think if teams are willing to pay that, maybe they would consider talking about trading away Alex Caruso. But right now, they feel Alex Caruso is a culture setter, a tone setter for this team, and a piece that I guess eventually when they do start these winning ways that we keep hoping come, that Alex Caruso is a player that you want to have there as a leader on that team. So I think right now, 2 out of the 3 pieces that you named, I could see the Chicago Bulls moving on from, but the most enticing piece is probably the one that they will hold on to.
And that makes this all the more interesting. And I think you're right. When you look at a team trying to rebuild something, you want guys like Alex Caruso in that locker room who are going to play defense, who are going to go hard every night. But those guys also have value here. Is there a team that you think with Zach LaVine makes the most sense? A piece that you go, okay, well, if we could just get like that it'd be nice to get. Like what makes sense here in that one?
I think at this point you're trying to find a somebody who is a team that is desperate, right? Very much like the Bulls were a couple of years ago, where free agents aren't going to make a decision to sign there, right? There's a couple of teams like that in the NBA right now. Charlotte's one of those teams, but they've started to sell off pieces, so you would assume they're out on Zach LaVine. But I think about Detroit. Detroit's the team that the Bulls have actively had conversations with. Yep. The funniest thing in the world was when I believe it was Brian Windhorst went on his podcast and basically said free agency isn't an option for Detroit. So an entire thing that you use to get players, that's not an option for you. So how do you get those guys? You make trades. They're going to have draft capital, whether they give whatever their pick is this year or not. They're going to have capital in place. That they've got some young pieces that maybe they haven't utilized in the right way. And I think that makes sense with a veteran piece in Bogdanovich possibly coming back as well. Now, is that a loss on the trade for the Bulls? 100%. But when nobody wants your guy, you're taking a loss at this point. You kind of got to take whatever the best available deal is. And it doesn't seem like the relationship here is going to move in the right direction to the point where you can say, well, we'll just wait till next year and see what's available. I think that's probably the best deal on the table. And from the Pistons side of it, right, you have Monty Williams in place, who was a guy who went over and worked with Devin Booker and turned him from what many people believe is kind of the 28-point per game guy into a superstar in the NBA. Zach LaVine's been that 28-point per game guy. If you get him healthy, working with Cade, who can facilitate the ball to him, maybe you feel like you can get the most out of him in Detroit. I think that's the most likely scenario now, but I mean, you can't really rule any of the teams that you feel free agents aren't going to show up to out, because at the end of the day, 25-point per game scorers, while, you can go find them in a lot of places, how many of them can you find that are going to be consistent?
Stay up to date all year on the Chicago Bulls by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Bulls on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube.